Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, Rose, for helping organize this. Lake County Dems, terrific Blue Gala. Thank you again. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. Lieutenant Colonel, 22 years in service. Last position was in the White House. I want to tell you that I was the one that reported Donald Trump's corruption, resulting in his first impeachment. I'd like to explain a little bit about that. It's always a topic of curiosity how a officer serving in the military, with the commander-in-chief being the president of the United States, could report that. Tell you about what I'm doing now, and tell you a little bit about my background and frankly my view on the world. So that phone call in July 25th, 2019, a long time ago, was a moment of crystal clarity for me. I wrote a book, it's out there for auction, in which I kind of retell the story of walking into, somebody had it, walking into my twin brother's office, who served across the hall from me. He's now Congressman Eugene Vindman, serving in Northern Virginia. Also an Army colonel, 25 years of service for him. And closing the door and making sure I had his attention and saying, Eugene, if what I'm about to tell you ever becomes public, Donald Trump will be impeached. And just minutes afterwards, I went into the legal counsel's office. This is the kind of top oversight body on the National Security Council, and proceeded to report that Donald Trump was engaging in a corrupt scheme to put the squeeze on the Ukrainians to steal an election. And ultimately that resulted in congressional oversight and testimony, and that's how I became a public figure. But that was probably that was certainly the end of my career. I found myself out of uniform not too much after that because of Trump's retaliation, harassment, impeding my promotion to colonel, and as well as holding up hundreds of general officer promotions. But for me, that was the end of a career in which I deployed in combat, served in overseas assignments in Ukraine, in Moscow, Russia. At the Pentagon, I drafted the national strategy for contending with Russia as a threat actor, and ultimately came to the National Security Council in the lofty position of a director, which, while I was getting paid as a lieutenant colonel, made me the equivalent of a 3-star. I was convening deputy assistant secretaries to help develop, synchronize, organized policy for the countries in my portfolio, which were basically the entirety of Eastern Europe, Russia, and a bunch of other places. So to me, it was crystal clear that Donald Trump was setting us on a more dangerous course. 2019 would put us 5 years into this war between Russia and Ukraine that started in 2014, and that Trump was encouraging Putin to be aggressive. And it didn't take that much longer. Just a short time later, Donald Trump set the signals that the Republican Party wasn't going to be there, was not going to challenge Putin's full-scale war on Russia. And that was a major factor. But to me, it was crystal clear that I needed to do something to make sure that we changed course. It also was crystal clear that Donald Trump was using his influence to put the squeeze on a country at war, and in so doing, tried to fabricate a investigation into Joe Biden, who was then going to be this is 2019, he was going to be the chief rival going into the 2020 election. And that was not going to happen on my watch. I sworn an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against enemies foreign and domestic. So, this scheme had been unfolding for months. In the same time that Trump and his henchmen were putting the squeeze on Ukrainians, I was organizing the rest of the government. At that point in time, it was the first Trump administration. You still had, they might have been on the Republican side of the spectrum, but they were notables. They were policymakers to try to figure out where we should be. And everybody was on the same page. We needed to bolster Ukraine to make sure that they didn't look like an easy target for Russia. We needed to make sure that we countered Russia's aggressive moves through that portion of the world. So that phone call occurred on I think it was a Thursday, the 25th. On Friday, I had I had cabinet officials coming on the record saying we need to support Ukraine. Weeks later, I had a presidential decision memo saying that we need to support Ukraine, that President Trump refused to sign until Congress opened up its investigation and he reversed course. So to me, all this was crystal clear. My obligations squarely in my portfolio that I needed to act, and I didn't put my career first. So that's the background to that moment in our history. I think it also helped that my family came as refugees from the Soviet Union in 1979, and that I had the distinct, or actually a really well-established, grounded view that we did not want our country to end up like some of the countries that I had served in, like Russia, which had a brief moment of democracy, but quickly unraveled into despotism and tyranny. And that my family, having fled from the Soviet Union and being able to partake in the American dream, that had a role to play, in order to help us maintain the course, and that's something that I still do today. What am I doing today after I found myself out of the military? I wrote an article in the Washington Post in which I tried to explain why I was leaving the military, or was forced out of the military. And I set kind of a manifesto to myself. I said I was going to continue to advocate for public service. I was going to advocate for values-based leadership. And I was going to advance U.S. national security. And I'm doing all those things today. One of my positions is as a senior advisor to an organization called Vote Vets. For those of you that are veterans, and I know at least one of them here, Darren McCauley, who's running in Florida 15, excellent candidate. He's a He's a colonel, flight surgeon, served in the VA for the bulk of his career. Pretty darn terrific candidate for Florida 15, just on the outskirts of Tampa and Central Command and Special Operations Command. So what we do is we help usher in the political careers of scores of candidates. This last go around, when it was a disastrous outcome for the Democratic Party at large, we helped elevate Ruben Gallego from the House to the Senate. Melissa Scott from the House to the Senate. Andy Kim from the House to the Senate. Tammy Duckworth. My twin brother, Vindman, are all the beneficiaries of the work that Vote Vets does. In addition to helping win 169 races out of 305 endorsed candidates that we had in that cycle, so much better than half in a very difficult cycle, because veterans outperform in general, are really competitive in places in the country that anybody with a D at the end of their name is usually disqualified. Is one of the things that I'm really proud to do, help values-based leaders enter into politics and have a political career of service after they hang up the uniform. I also run, thank you. I also run a think tank called the Institute for Informed American Leadership. Some of you have come up to me and said that you've seen me on CNN or MSNBC. It's usually because I'm talking about something that's going on in the world, whether it's US, Russia, Ukraine relations. I published a book that puts me on the road probably too much and away from Florida, which I've come to love. We're now Floridians. It gives me the ability to really talk about these issues, both in the mistakes that we've made historically. The premise of the book is that we've made the same mistakes over the course of 6 different administrations. Those are Republican and Democrat, and that there's a better course for us to put values first, values primacy, as a way to look at long-term objectives, not what's immediately in front of us. That's what we tend to do. We look at immediate risks, immediate fears. Like Donald Trump is particularly notorious at seeing, Putin talk about nuclear weapons and folding. Or business deals. Donald Trump is the worst, also amongst the worst. We made mistakes before. We grasped at the idea of working together with the Russians on climate change. They could care less about climate change, but they know it's important to us. So these are the things that we seem to be tripped up on. instead of long-term objectives, that we need to help our fellow democracies out. So it's the idea that values could help us avoid the mistakes that we've made in the past. When I'm not doing that, I'm here in South Florida. I live in Davie. It's a pretty awesome place. My wife Rachel is here with me, and I want to actually briefly mention as a military spouse, I hauled her across the world. At one point, I think we moved 11 times in 10 years. We have a 14, almost 15-year-old. She's a 9th grader. And Rachel just recently won election to be the chair of the Democratic Party's Veteran and Military Family Council. So she's got a 50-state purview to help elevate the voices and address the issues of veterans and military families. She keeps saying co-chair, but I know who runs the show. So Davie's been a wonderful opportunity for us. Frankly, I've seen the blessings of being in South Florida, the terrific weather, the excellent community. It's deep blue Broward over there, maybe a little bit more comfortable, and I don't want to say that it's difficult, but I think it could be a mixed bag with some of your neighbors up here. A little bit easier down there, but I certainly see lots of issues with regards to infringements on our rights. I've got almost a 15-year-old daughter that she doesn't have a say in her body and the loss of reproductive rights. Affordability is a major issue across the state. Healthcare, I think that was very, very well said about the impact on the Affordable Care Act. Insurance payments, health safety, the fact that vaccines are being restricted in the state that has disproportionately elderly. That is really quite dangerous. And I moved my dad down here, he's 93, and my mom, that's 78. I don't want them to be exposed because the state has really beyond fringe ideas on the fact that vaccines are harmful. And then of course, education, infrastructure, critical components in the state. So I'm getting a handle on these issues. I kind of follow the lead of somebody like David Jolly. I just did a couple of them. David Jolly running for governor. Check him out. I heard him give a 15-minute speech, no notes, unbelievable grasp of the issues. Terrific candidate. I think as long as we get eyes on him, the more eyeballs we get on him, there's a really good chance that guy could be our next governor. So what do I do besides help get veterans elected, besides my think tank work advocating for policies? I also have a nonprofit to help Ukraine directly. And then when I'm not doing all those things, I participate in some protests. Last week I did 2. I did one in Miami, kicked off the Miami protest. And then I wanted to make sure I got double counted, so I went up to Fort Lauderdale and participated in that too. Look, I think I'll channel some of the things I said to that crowd and recognize that we're as a party, we're obviously very, very focused on elections, but it's more than elections. It's the fact that we have a major deficit in voter registration in the state. And the only way that gets fixed is through the DECs. The only way that gets fixed is through the localities looking to do voter registration efforts. And it's not the single touches, but it's the kind of the drumbeat of engagements that I don't think the state party is necessarily, that may not even be its role. I think if you have motivated counties and districts and precincts, that's how you start to fix the gaps here. And in addition to that, I think there's another critical role. That is all built towards electoral politics. What struck me about the No Kings protest was the fact that our founding fathers conceived of the First Amendment with a specific intent in mind. They were in a context of a revolution. And for them, they recognized that when the state turns to tyranny, we have one recourse outside of elections. And that's to show up and protest and make sure our voices are heard. So that's something that my organization, Vote Vets, is going to probably get more involved in. We have the ability to touch millions of veterans across the country. I think it's something that, as an action item, I think that's something that all the local parties should be very, very focused on. Are you happy with where things are going? If you're not, your opportunity to make your voice heard is to protest and show up for your community, show up for your fellow citizens, whatever the issue might be. So it was a point of pride to be able to participate in those. I think that our country is in a very difficult place right now. I spent a significant portion of my career studying and the challenge of facing off against Russia, a great power, a major adversary, and understanding how even in their brief moment towards democracy, things could quickly unravel. I mean, within a generation, our democracy could be lost. So certainly this election, 2025, is going to be critical. It might not. I know we have a special election here. We are very, very laser focused on the two gubernatorials Vote Vets. Those candidates, Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey and those are part of our 2018 class. Those have to be absolutely decisive wins. Because what ends up happening is the message we want to send to those Republicans is you could be comfortable in your R+4, R+5 seat, but that's not going to keep you safe. Because the American public is going to reject your rubber stamp on Trump policies, and we're going to take back this country. We're going to take it back in 2026. And part of that story is going to be Florida, and part of that story is going to be Lake County Democrats. Keep up the fight.
So with you